Past President Malcom Macintosh. First came to Musselburgh MRFC in 1973 when I was immediately given the nickname Sweeney. I've got many happy memories of playing with some great players, none more so than Norrie Shirley. I never had to look for Norrie. I always knew that he would be in the right place in the right time, and he always was. The most memorable times, however, are not as a player, but when along with Ian Tinker Ritchie I coached the Colts team. It was a group of determined young men with an unflinching comradeship and a work ethos that secured them the Edinburgh title, winning with a benchmark that can't be surpassed, in that they didn't concede a single try in that season. Well, in that year's league anyway. My time as president followed on from John Tallock, and I was blessed to have a committee that was both committed, supportive and challenging, all in equal measure. At that time there were many negotiations that would have seen the club move from Stonyhill, but they were all fruitless, and we remain at Stonyhill and see out our first century there. In these troubled times, as we move forward, I'm sure the club will continue to be integral in the community of Musselburgh and East Lothian, and also provide a strong voice in the arena of Scottish rugby. So it's all the best for the club for the next century, and beyond that, I would hope. Good wishes to everybody, to all the members, committees and all the players. Hope to see you all at Stonyhill soon.
Hi, I'm Bob Nelson. I was president of the club from 2004 to 2006. I joined the club in 1974 after realising that I would never make it as a successful footballer and the Musselburgh Grammar team, who were fairly successful at the time. I've never looked back and met some fantastic friends within the rugby club. I've had a lot of memorable times in the club, some good, some bad, but most of them good. I enjoyed time as a player, as a committee member, as president, and now as an Alakadu, and one of the boo boys on the bank. One of my fondest memories was our club trip to Wales, which took in a game against Neath. Certainly an eye-opener from a different aspect of club rugby to what I was used to and what they thought was club rugby back in the day, albeit good for both sides. Touring also added a great enjoyment to myself, particularly the tour to Canada in 1982, which saw a huge party from the club go, in excess of 60 people, from old Alakadoos to the new young emerging players, which I think was beneficial to the club all round, and lifetime friendships were made and nurtured from then on. It was a joy to be part of. On the organisation front, a club brings its own challenges, all good in one way or another, from the financial side to the playing aspect of the club, and the overall members, who, in my opinion, are the lifeblood. Without our members, we may well shut up shop. Club is an integral part to the sporting facilities within the Musselburgh community and should be kept that way. We're a club that embraces the SRU values and delivers them on a local basis. Long may this continue. Finally, I'm proud to be part of Musselburgh Rugby Club, one, if not the best clubs in Scotland. All the best for the Centenary, and happy birthday, Musselburgh.
Happy birthday, Musselburgh Rugby Club. The day after the Scottish team's famous victory at Twickenham, I think it's time that I put my part down with regard to Drew's request for video inputs. It doesn't seem like nearly 50 years ago since Duncan McMillan suggested that I take a trip up to Stonyhill and have a shot at the game of rugby. So up went this footballer who didn't know one end of a rugby ball from another, and before anyone says, some may think nothing has changed. And there I was, and I met the icon that was Ramsay Smith, who tried to teach me the ins and outs of being a scrum half. Afterwards in the club, a lime and lemonade, speaking to all the huge rugby players. Gordon McClanahan looked about 12 feet 6 at that time, and then over came the luminary that was the president. Ramsay Smith introduced me to that wonderful Chris Barclay-Smith, and from then on things just gathered pace. Up to Forsyth for my strip, 1495. Games played every Saturday, 5:15s going out, and then it ended up with the Colts in 1975, 74-75. And from that, long-lasting friendships that last till today. I met my wife at the rugby club. We've had highs of promotions, we've had lows of relegation, we've had highs of sevens victories. The pride of seeing both my sons play for the minis and the middies, and then one son taking the field in the first 15. But I sometimes think we didn't get every respect that we deserved. We were too close to Edinburgh and too far away from the centre of East Lothian. However, we've done it, and we've done it well. To all those whose names are on the boards in the clubhouse, that is wonderful. Thank you for all the work that you've done. For those whose names don't appear on the boards, the people who helped out in the club, the people who helped out with the minis, the people who helped out with serving teas after matches, those are the spirit of Musselburgh Rugby Club, and thank you for everything you've done. A number of years ago, the Scottish Government said that Scotland was the best small country in the world, and I would like to think that Musselburgh Rugby Football Club is the best small rugby club in the world, with the biggest heart. Happy Centenary, Musselburgh Rugby Football Club.
Hi, John McGhee here. I joined the club in the mid-70s. I had the great honour of being president 2007 to 2009. Highlights of the presidency: us winning our sevens both years, beating Jed Forest and Kelso in a league match for the first time ever, the under-18s making the Youth Cup final, the under-16s going on the following year to become Scottish champions. Made a lot of lifelong friends and have great memories of the club, and it's brilliant to be able to help them celebrate their centenary and onwards and upwards for the next 100 years. Thanks.
Good evening, it's Colin Scott here. I've been a member of Musselburgh Rugby Club for 45 years now. During that time I've been a player, I've been in the coaching staff, committee member. Then from 2009 to 2013 I've had the privilege of being president of the club, and currently I'm an honorary president of the club. I can still remember my very first game for Musselburgh. It was at Pinkie Playing Fields. It was in April 1976. It was against Trinity Accies. I was playing at scrum half during the game, and I was getting some unwanted attention from one of the back row players, especially at lineouts. So the referee warned the number 7 for throwing a punch at me. The second half he done exactly the same again. So the referee had no option but to send them off. So after the game in the clubhouse, the Trinity player came up to me and said, "Colin, you could at least have told me that the referee was your dad." So a true story. My dad was the referee in the very first game I played for Musselburgh. Footnote to the game, we actually won the game as well. No surprise there. Musselburgh is a great club to be a part of, and I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the club on its centenary. And let's all look forward to the future where we can be back together again and celebrate in style. To Musselburgh Rugby Club.
Good evening, everyone. Martin Gill here, Musselburgh President 2013 to 2015. I hope you're all keeping well. Reflections of that time, can't believe it's so long ago. Well, obviously it was a championship winning season of 2015, where the team under Grant had a fantastic year. It was a near miss in 2014. We came up against our usual foes of Howe of Fife and Hamilton driving for that promotion place at the very top. I recall a terrible, terrible dark night down in Kelso where we played in the Cup, and quite a rough game. And Tom Armstrong, you remember, Australian, scored in the very far corner right at the end, and there was a small kerfuffle after he scored. And the referee, Mr. Mike Adamson, who we might see in the Six Nations, during this time, sent Tom off. Well, we certainly sorted him out back in that day, because we got that red card for spitting overturned, and Tom was able to participate at the end of season finale, which was all set up for the 28th of March 2015. Good crowd down at Stony Hill, all ready to go against our friends from Howe of Fife. Well, it was a poor start, 12-0 down. Slight concern, I have to say, at that point. But my recollection was the pack dominated from that point on, and the Packs then took over, and it was a good 32-20 win for the Borough that day. Great celebrations on the pitch at the end, some great photos from that day, and obviously a super night in the bar. And I guess that gave the club the platform to move forward, which they have done even more from that day. But it was a long time since a promotion, and I think that took us on a step towards where we are today, battling away in the Premiership. Fantastic for the rugby club. It's great to hear of all the developments that are currently going on. The club always needs its upkeep. We spent, got those cash back, the community's money and Viridor money back in the day, and that's just kept going. So absolutely fantastic. So sorry it's not a dinner, because as most of you that know me very well, I do like a dinner and a refreshment. Mike Fleming definitely owes me a pint, and hopefully we'll get a dinner at some stage in the not too distant future. Congratulate the club on its centenary. Fantastic times. It's a huge part of the community, from the minis and the middies through to the senior and the social scene for us retired souls. So have a great night, and thank you for having me.
Hi, Keith Buchan here, past president of Musselburgh Rugby Club, season 2015 to 2017. I came down to Musselburgh from Portobello when I was 22 to meet up with my good friend Jimmy Andy's side, which was some 42 years ago. I've held several positions within the rugby club, but two that spring to mind that I really enjoyed and had a great times with is when I was the mini convener, and for the Millennium 2000 we took 150 kids over to Dublin, the mini and the midi, to go on tour and that, which was fantastic. Great times. And also I was vice president. I became the project manager for the refurbishment of the clubhouse, which was great. And now coming along on board with the new gym and changing rooms and that, we're going to have a first class facility at Stony Hill, which I think will be absolutely brilliant. And I've met a lot of good friends through rugby, and I have still got a lot of good friends within the rugby circles today at the club. So all I want to say is many happy returns to Musselburgh Rugby Club, and here's to the next 100 years. Happy birthday, Musselburgh Rugby Football Club.
Hello everyone, I'm Robin Veitch, and I was president at Musselburgh Rugby Club from 2017 to 2019. I first joined Musselburgh Rugby Club in 1990 and have some fabulous rugby memories from playing with the first, seconds, thirds and over 35s, coaching mini rugby and refereeing. During my time as president, there are two particular occasions that spring to mind. The first being a game at Netherdale in December 2017, where with the last kick of the game, our current club captain Danny Olsen kicked a fabulous conversion to win the game 41-39. And of course, who can forget the last game of the 2018-19 season at Stony Hill against Jed Forest, where gaining a try bonus point gave us promotion to the Premiership for the first time in 30 years. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Musselburgh Rugby Club on reaching 100 years and look forward to celebrating the centenary year with all our members, supporters and players and the wider rugby family when we are able to do so.
Hi, being elected president of the club has been a great honour for me. I've tried my best to uphold our key values of integrity, respect and inclusion, and have to say that being president during a global pandemic was something I had not planned on. However, as we enter our centenary year, I have tried my best to ensure that we do something to make this occasion memorable. Our online celebration, receiving lots of support from across the rugby community and of course our old members, was a tremendous achievement and hopefully will stand the test of time and be there for years to come. My journey to the presidency began back when I was a young colt in 1976, 17 years of age, weighing about 12.5 stone. Sandy Brown came up to me one night and said, "Drew, I don't think you're fast enough to play in the backs, and actually, if you put on a bit of bulk, you could play in the forwards." Well, I took him to his word, and over the next 18 months I managed to put on about 3 stone, mostly of muscle back then I have to say, and found my way to playing in the forwards, a move that I never regretted. Over the years I managed to play with some great players. Rob Brown was my mentor in the early days. He taught me a lot about how to play front 5 forward, especially the more aggressive side of the game. He was a true legend of the club. I was fortunate enough to get a place in the first in 1979, and after that I managed to become sort of a regular over the early 80s, culminating in my election as captaincy in 1984-85 season. We had a great year that year, winning Division 3, losing only one game, a horrible day at DL, best forgotten. After that I played in the team that won promotion to the First Division and played all the games in the First Division against some of the best players of the day. It was a truly memorable experience. Going forward into 1988, we reached the AGM and it appeared nobody really wanted to be captain that year. We'd just been relegated from the First Division and Donald had intimated that he couldn't go on. In a moment of weakness I put my name forward and everybody seemed to jump on that, and so I was elected captain for a second time. We were very fortunate that season. We had quite a few young players coming out of the Colts, and with a few old heads hanging around we managed to stabilise our position in Division 2, a position that was to remain for quite a number of years thereafter. I had some great trips with the club, notably for me, Maastricht the first time, and then Maesteg, of course, was a great time down in Wales on our biannual excursion. However, one of the great highlights was our tour to Canada in 1992, for which I was the club treasurer, or should I say the treasurer for the touring party. We managed to raise a lot of money that year, and I have to say that taking 59 people on a jaunt was a great achievement and something that will live with us all forever. Moving forward, when we got to back from Canada, I broke my ankle, which probably brought an end to my first team career. But I enjoyed playing down the club, and over the late part of the 90s had a great time, whether as a player for the seconds and thirds or even as committee man, sometimes driving the club minibus on such excursions as to the borders, to Biggar. I remember a foggy night coming back from there, which was quite dangerous. And also, of course, our excursions to places like the Romano Bridge Hotel, a night never to be forgotten. I enjoyed the social aspect of the club and became fully conversant with a lot of songs which could never be repeated outside of a rugby environment. However, I do think we all enjoy a rendition of Sunshine Mountain now and again, apart from the publicans whose cheers always come under a bit of pressure. I took the opportunity to take up refereeing, where actually it benefited the club to have Musselburgh referees on the panel. But unfortunately in 2001 I had a heart attack whilst I was refereeing a game up at Trinity, between Trinity and Howe Fife, and that really brought an end to that. However, I did continue with the society as a coach, referee coach, and then managed to progress onto the SRU panel of referee coaching. So that was quite a good time. But the call and the lure of Musselburgh was always there, and I came back in the late 2000s to try and help out with the mini rugby and also with the Colts. I helped Gus with the Colts, and Ian McMillan and Mike Horsburgh with the mini rugby. I also ran the touch for the first during that period, so we had some great times. Okay. In about 2011, when the club had just been relegated to the regional leagues, a group of people got together in the club and said, how do we stop this decline? And the upshot was that I returned as treasurer. I had been treasurer for 7 years previously, in the late 1990s, after David Holmes had decided to call it a day. But having had a break, membership secretary of the club, it seemed appropriate that I come back on as treasurer. For the next 4 or 5 years, we really concentrated on rejuvenating the club on the playing side. That's when we had our foreign imports policy. So it was a challenge on the financial front. But at the background of all that, I had a plan that we would always upgrade the clubhouse, but the first step was always to get the roof repaired, because it had been there for 40 years. Having managed to gain a grant, we did get the roof repaired, replaced in fact, and that allowed us to do the upgrading of the club in the mid-2010s. That then brought my involvement to the end on the finance, because Gill Irvin stepped up to the plate and has taken it on for the last 4 or 5 years. And to be honest, she's doing a far better job than I could ever have imagined doing. Her commitment is second to none. I then was persuaded by Robin to stand as his vice president for a couple of years in 2017-18, and then of course was elected president in 2019. It was great being part of the administration of the club, and I must admit I'm very fortunate to have a great team on the board. Grant does a fantastic job with the director of rugby. Janet on the secretary, absolutely wonderful. Gill on the finance, and Robin providing the expertise, with Blair co-opted on to do as much fundraising as possible, and he's been fantastic for that as well. It certainly made myself and Brian Jardin's life a lot easier as the supposed figureheads of the club. So there we are, a whistle-stop tour of my time in the club. It's been 46 years of enjoyment. I've made a lot of lifelong friends, not only within the club but across rugby as a whole, and I just hope that the next few years can be as enjoyable and the club goes from strength to strength. And I wish everyone at Musselburgh FC a happy centenary season and all the best for the future.